It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Enzel Ndebele and this is the Breakfast Club. In Kalanga, kulenye saying, okuthiwa chinyunyi babili kombawuka chowuluka. In simple terms, sometimes you need other people to help you because you cannot be doing everything on your own. And in English, they always say, you can't be a jack of all trades because most of the times you end up being a jack of all trades and a master of none. And in this program, we always want to give you expertise in many other areas. And we need to admit that sometimes we don't know everything and we can't be everything to everyone. So today in this program, we want to be talking about farming. But who best can talk about farming other than a local journalist, Busani Bafana? He has done a lot of work around agriculture, climate change, into zokulima, small livestock, and into zinjalo. And in the next few weeks and months and probably years, Bafana will be bringing this program every week where we'll be talking to different farmers and different livestock producers. Into zinjalo nje zokulima. So in the program today, he talks to a local farmer and expects to see him every week. Lathi phela kwesinye isikhathi kumele sihlale phansi sibukele sifunde. So let's enjoy the program with Busani Bafana.
Good morning. My name is Busani Bafana. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. In our episode today, we are focusing on farming and agriculture. Livestock farming is a profitable business where farmers focus on breeding quality animals that give the best yields in terms of meat and milk. Obert Chinhamo is a livestock farmer who has successfully bred pedigree Simmental cattle, a popular beef and dairy breed. In this episode, we learn about how farmers can improve their cattle through stud breeding and how cattle breeding can be a profitable business for farmers.
I'm Obert Chinhamo. I farm at Biano Farm in Escondine. We do Simmental cattle, Simmental Simbra cattle like you see, what you see right behind us here.
Mr. Chinhamo, the cattle that we see behind, why? What motivated you to actually go into breeding Simmental?
We breed Simmentals because we feel we have got to change the beef industry in terms of beef production. What you see here is beef producing animals. So if you look at the body size of the animal, you look at the weight gains that we get, you look at the conversion ratios when you feed them food, it's very important to understand those things because when you want to produce beef, you want to produce beef, and beef is beef. The other breeds do produce beef like we are saying, but the volume of beef that we produce is different from animal to animal. So these animals are medium framed to large frames. So where you slaughter one small animal, where you slaughter one of our animals, you probably need to slaughter maybe 2.5 to 3 of the smaller animals. So I think what makes us want to breed these cattle more is that we're looking at producing beef for growing populations and export because it's exportable beef. You're talking the small carcasses, it's difficult to export those, and so we want to bridge that gap. We want to come with options for any farmer. Any farmer would like to improve their heads. They will look at us and say we've potential to do better. And also Simmentals are dual purpose animals. So you can choose to milk them or you can choose to beef them. So it's up to the farmers what they want to do. But we bridge that gap between the dairy sector and the beef sector. Now, when you use a Simmental, for example, you take a Simmental bull and use it on a dairy cow, the progeny you get is more beefy. It's got more beef. You know, if you're comparing the dairy animals and the beef animals, you'll find it's difficult for you to get residual value from a dairy cow. Most of them you would probably do pet food out of them. But when you put Simmental blood in them, now it's not pet food. You can sell it as beef in the shops.
Interesting. Yeah. Before you started breeding Simmental, I want to believe you did have the traditional breeds or the indigenous breeds, as it were. Do you see a difference now in terms of how they perform?
Yes, we did a lot of work on other breeds prior to choosing to go into start breeding. So when we used to breed with the commercial cattle, call them commercial cattle, when we used to breed with commercial cattle, we used to carry numbers almost close to 1,000, 750, 800, and so on and so on. But those numbers were too big. You're managing a big herd, you're not getting good returns, you're complaining every day, mali, and you know the language on the market. Now, when you start breeding these animals, you start to see value because, for example, we are winning. You can see the calves here. We're winning our calves at around 320 kgs. And I'm saying if you're breeding the smaller breeds that we're talking about, or the other animals that are not medium to large frames, you are going to win maybe at most at 150 kgs. But we've raised the calves over the same period. And if we are selling for $1 per kg, I've got 320 kgs and you've got $150. You understand the point? Because we are selling for $1 per kg, whatever breed you have, whether it's Simmental, whether it's Nguni, whether it's Mashona, or whatever breed. But the advantage now that you get from using the Simmental bloods is you get improved winner weights, which I think a lot of farmers are looking at the commercial side of it. You want to do winner production. And when you are doing winner production, you want to raise heavier winners and you make money from winning. You win, you sell, you do other things. You wait to win again next year and so on and so on. So
what are the average returns like, for the breeding Simmental in terms of when actually they reach maturity? And
yeah, the returns are very good. Like I'm saying, they are heavy animals, one. And when you sell these things, you're selling per kg. And a kg of a heavy animal and a kg of a light animal is a kg. But how much do you harvest from one animal is the most important thing. Where you carry three smaller framed animals, we just need one animal. So instead of carrying the 800 animals we used to carry, we only carry about 300. But the value is even more than the 800 animals that we used to carry. So you can see what I'm trying to say. So I think basically we need to get to educate a lot of our people to get involved in these crossbreeding programs, develop some of our own breeds using these breeds because they are good breeds. They've got milk, they've got beef. So if we use them for crossbreeding, it's going to give us good results as we move forward. It may not be overnight, but it's a development that takes place over years. But we will see it eventually that these animals have been developed from the use of these genetics that we have. So these genetics are available for farmers who would like to see a change in what they're breeding and what they're producing on the farms.
how good are they in crossbreeding with other?
They are the best. I think the world over, the most used bulls for crossbreeding is Simmental. They are the best. That's why in the world you find, we partnered with the Brahman breeders to produce that. This is a Simbra. You can see what it's looking like. It's heavier than a Brahman. This is a 2020 born female. She's already calved. She's got fertility from Simmental. She's got the beef structure from the Simmental. She's got the milk from the Simmental. And if you look at the calves, they already weaned calves. They're pregnant again. So if you want to do the comparison, you can see very well how they're growing. Sometimes because of the hybrid vigor, you get them growing to give you even more weight than the Simmental itself. These females are heavier than the Simmental cows that you see here. The Simbras are heavier. So the reason why we brought these Simbras here today is to show people here on the show that would like to see a typical example of a crossbreeding program where you've used Simmental bulls. And we've sold Simmental bulls to a lot of indigenous breeders across Zimbabwe who are using them extensively on their programs. And the one very good program that I know is where we're doing a program with Mkono Magic in Chinoi. They've crossed it with Tuli and Mashona and the Nguni type cattle. And it's a very good cross. If you look at the animals, you can see influence or impact of semental on the heads, which is why we breed these animals, so we can help the farmers get the genetics easily locally.
To talk to us about breeding, raising these animals in terms of of food, feed, and even general health. Is it not costly?
What I would like to talk about is to talk about how farmers can improve all other heads nutritionally. It's not about semental, it's not about Angus, it's not about any other breed. You know, when we're looking at these animals, nutritionally, all animals need to be looked after well, especially when we go into winter. In summer, when the grass is green, like you see, all cattle will convert green grass into muscle. But when we go into the drier seasons, we struggle, or a lot of people struggle with their animals. You get lots of mortality. I will tell you one thing that from the history of my breeding, we have never had cattle on our farm and other semental breeders. We have not had records of mortality to poverty deaths, which is related to nutrition. We haven't had those because we know winter comes every year. So we prepare for our animals. We will have hay bales. You can see we've got hay bales. We will have silage. You've seen our silage. We've got ammoniated hay and all that. All those are some of the part of our operations that we do to keep our animals in good health throughout the year. So as a farmer, or as farmers, it's very important to encourage one another to understand that we need to work for the animals. It's not just that they graze in the bush and you forget about them. Even if they survive the drought, you may not get production out of them because they are thin. No thin animal will take a bull. So our aim is for each cow to give us a calf every year, and this we achieve because of the nutrition that we give to our animals. But I think the most important thing is to talk about these subjects separately. You know, the silage making, the hay baling, and all that, and the nutrition that the animal needs. It's very important for you guys to organize like seminars, get specialist people to come and talk about it, and teach people on even the simple things like growing a winter pasture. We have already planted our oats. We planted 4 or 5 days ago. So we will be having some green food for these animals during the winter period.
So would you say that's like a mechanism to actually cope with the drought and the lean winter months for your livestock?
It's actually, to us, it's I would not call it a strategy, but I would call it is part of the operations that we do. We always do that, and we must always be doing that. And if we stop doing that, then we stop breeding, because we breed. We are here to breed cattle, and we must breed them. It must be a continuous process. And for any other farmer, believe me, any other farmer, for them to continue to be in business of doing livestock, be it sheep, goats, and anything else that's livestock, the most important thing is that nutrition that we're talking about. Without nutrition, you are not going to be doing anything. It's not just about cattle. Let's be objective and look at it more objectively and say every other farmer requires to have at least some stocks to cover them through winter, because winter is the most difficult time. Summer, we don't talk about summer. The grass is green everywhere. Cattle get lush green everywhere, and you don't worry about that. And if you want to see the serious farmers, you can only see them, visit them in winter. Remember, we do our field day in September, day before the beef school is our field day, because we want to get the traveling public coming to the beef school to attend our field day. And so the reason why we do our field days in midwinter is because we want to show people how our cattle look like in the driest parts of the year, which is September, October, somewhere there. So when you come to see our cattle, you will understand what I'm talking about, because we will have silage, we will have hay, we will have everything. So our cattle can even go on the pens and be on zero grazing, but they will survive, they will give us production, they will give us a lot of meat for whatever if we decide whatever we want to cull, they will go to slaughter, and there will be fat cattle.
Listening to you, then I'm convinced that looking after livestock is really like looking after babies. You have to ensure that they have good nutrition.
Exactly, because these are our babies. This is our business. We make money out of these things. So if you're making money out of this, why can't we look after them well? If everybody were to take the approach to say livestock farming is a business, then we are good as a country. We will see a different dimension going forward.
And you grow your own feed for your cattle. Maybe you couldn't just give us tips on what can farmers actually do, in that regard.
I'm saying to make silage, a lot of people will think that silage you need a very big pit. It depends on the size of your operation. You can do a very small pit to suit your operation, but that is typically what we need done. If you understand my point, you start with a small pit, you go to a medium, and so on until where you get to where you are. But the most important thing is farmers must start to do those things. If we don't start to make silage today, then we are not going to make silage. We'll keep talking about making silage and making silage, but if we don't practice it from now going forward, then we are not doing anything. So the most important thing, like I'm saying, is we just need to be active on the ground, produce whatever fodder we have. If you can do maize, if you can do sorghum, if you can do leb, if you can do velvet beans, if you can do pastures. We're doing silage out of the ordinary pastures like oats. Silage is just preservation of green material. It's a very simple process. It's not even a complicated. If you find somebody complicating and say, making silage is complicated, they are saying the wrong thing. Silage making is one of the simplest things. It's an anaerobic operation where you just don't want air in the product. It's the opposite of aerobic. If you allow air in, you're making compost. If you take out the air, then you're making silage. That's typical.
So then would you then say that it is important for farmers to actually, as you say, make their own feed compared to investing more on commercial feed? Because many farmers think the most quickest strategy when you are stuck is just to go and buy.
It's always cheaper to produce your own food on the farm. We spend a lot of time doing that on the farm, but it helps us in the end. To produce 100 tons of silage, you probably need just 2 to 3 hectares of maize crop. And to buy 100 tons of commercial feed, you probably need 40,000 US. But 3 hectares of maize will cost you less than $3,000. Believe me, it will cost you less than 3,000. So if you're comparing 40,000 and 3,000, it's two different worlds. So why not just produce your food on the farm and feed your cattle?
Right. What if it happens if you have a drought and you are not able, or you don't even have a lot of access to water? What could actually farmers really do? You do just.
We've got grass. Grass will always be there. You convert grass into, when it's green grass, you still make silage or quality haylage if you want. If you've got the dry grass, you can ammoniate it. You've seen our ammoniated pit. So you take the dry grass, drench it with Mabiko or drench it with urea. You're still going to come up with valuable food for your livestock. It's not just about silage. It's about trying to convert the poor roughage into good nutrition to feed your animals. So the adding of your urea or Mabiko or 5 has got what they call napi-tapi. All those things, you just sit with these specialists and find out how do you deal with that. But I think if we get to be more objective, the tree leaves, cattle eat the tree leaves. You can pick up the tree leaves, the green ones, and still make silage out of them. Just get the small twigs, the fresh ones, make small little pits, and your animals will survive. I think we complicate a lot of these things where we should just do simple things and grow from the simple things and do much bigger things.
What could be your advice on do's and don'ts that farmers should be aware of, particularly in terms of making silage and also maintaining the health of their animals?
I think the positives that we want to drive maybe from what we are talking is that the farmers must learn, like I said, to make the small little silage pits and preserve hay, preserve all the stover that comes from the harvests, whatever they do, whether it be it beans, be it anything that you harvest, you can preserve that and convert it into valuable food. But the negatives that we can talk about is when people, I call it negligence. If you know winter is coming and you're not preparing for winter, then that's negligence. You are expecting a miracle to happen. No miracle will happen in farming. Farming is farming. People must prepare and people must always be ready for the worst of times. They must be ready. Like this year, we're talking about El Nino. It's a huge drought across the country, not just in Matabeleland, across the country. You travel anywhere across the country, the crop failed dismally. And these failures are clear indicators that we could have salvaged a lot of the failing crop and converted into animal feeds. Then we would not fail with the crop and fail with the animals again. You understand the point? There's a point where we had to make a quick decision to say the crop is already failing. So what do? Cut it and make silage. And then you feed the animals. So you don't worry about the animals. You worry about humans now. You see the point?
Where does policy come in, in terms of, you talk about that farmers must be prepared, they must anticipate, to change when the situation calls for that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is need to actually tweak policy?
I think it's even, it doesn't necessarily have to be policy issues. It's farming has got to be something that we're talking about from grassroots going up. We must dictate what's good for the farmer, not the top dictating to us what is good for us, because we are the farmers. So the government must align, or the policymakers must align with what we're doing on the ground. So I think it's got to be a deliberate thing where you find farmers doing these small little things on their own, and government, when they recognize that these guys, this is what they are doing, then they align to say, how do we support these people? Because they've taken the initiative to do what works for them. Then you align policy to what the farmers are doing. So I think the most important thing is to get that initiative from the farmers to say, we are making groups, and from our groups we are teaching one another how to produce winter fodder, how to make a small little ammoniated pit, how to make a small little silage pit and things like that. This is what we must be doing at grassroots level, and then you can align a policy to what people are doing, not to get a professor sitting in an office and telling you must do this and that. It won't work.
Then lastly, as a breeder yourself, what next for you? Are you looking at value adding in terms of your animals, or?
We as a breeder, we are very happy to show people what we do. This is why we do field days, to show people the results they get from crossbreeding with our cattle, and to get people to understand the value of beef production as beef production. So as a breeder, I get excited when we get people talking to us about what value we bring to the beef industry, which is what you see and what we're happy to show people. Yeah.
Lastly, I thought I would ask you this question: the whole issue about climate change and the impact of agriculture, in terms of the impact of agriculture, in terms of the climate change. I'm keen to understand from you. There is this that farmers, livestock farming contributes, to the carbon emissions, and also that there's need either to change the feed, or in other parts of the world they're saying farmers we should stop eating beef altogether. Do you see yourself?
I don't think it's farmers who are saying we must stop eating beef. It's other people, like people who are campaigning against fossil fuels and all that. Climate change is climate change, and it's real. But believe me, even before climate change, even before we started talking about climate change cattle have always been a part of humanity, and people have survived out of cattle from, it doesn't matter whether it was Europe or anywhere. People have lived out of cattle ever since. So I don't know how people explain it, but climate change is climate change. And if cattle are causing that, we don't know, but we want to encourage people to eat a lot of beef, so we produce a lot of it. As a farmer, that's me as a farmer.
How could farmers like you, in fact, contributing like to beef export? Zimbabwe used to have a quota into the EU, and right now I think we are to zero. We're not really exporting, beef. Do you see an opportunity there?
Yeah, like when we're talking about export of beef to the European market, there's two factors that we must look at there. There's the political side of it, which we cannot talk about because that's more political. And then if you then look at the quality of cattle, even if we were to take out the politics today out of the export of beef, 90% of Zimbabwean cattle are owned by communal farmers. So if 90% of those cattle are in communal hands, it means it's not exportable beef because they are small little animals that we're talking about. For us to be able to export, the people that give you orders for the beef will give you specifications of what they want. And most of it aligns with the cattle that have been imported from outside the country. So the cattle that can be exported are these same cattle, the bloodlines from these cattle, whether you're crossing with them, Brahman, Angus, Charolais, the exotic animals. Those, when the Europeans settled in Africa, they brought the cattle because they want to breed them here and feed them on grass and then send them back to Europe. You see, but they are not very interested in the Mashona cattle. You cannot export them. Maybe if you convert them, maybe cross Mashona, Simmental, maybe on the third, fourth generation, you can then export because it's got a lot of Simmental blood in it. When they start talking about the marbling and what, all those issues, you don't find those in the indigenous cattle. So we really need to work hard. If we are going to be doing export, we really need to have the exportable cattle.
So this is where,
this is where we come in. This is where we come in to try and get the industry to appreciate that one day when we need to export, we need these breeds. We need to keep breeding these animals. We need to do a lot of crossbreeding work and get animals closer to what can be exported.
But what would it take, Mr. Chinhamo, you are a successful breeder, for us to scale up success like yours among the 90% of the farmers that you are saying are breeding cattle that is not exportable?
Yeah, what we need to do is to get the policy guys involved. I know we've got a bull station somewhere in Zimbabwe, where maybe it's Mazowe or somewhere. The bull station, they're buying bulls from us. They must draw a lot of semen, do a lot of... I know I've seen a statement from the Permanent Secretary for Agriculture saying the bull station is functional. We've got a lot of semen. They're going in the communities and doing artificial insemination on a lot of those animals. That will go a very long way in bringing or changing the animals in those communities. So if you look at what has been happening in the same communities, a lot of inbreeding has taken place. People don't buy bulls. They use this. They recycle the same bulls on their daughters and so on and so on, granddaughters and so on and so on. So you find there's been a lot of inbreeding, which we need to deal with by bringing in these other animals. So once you introduce Simmental or Angus or Charolais or whatever to the communities, what it means is you will never get closer to inbreeding anytime soon, because these are genetics that have not even been there. So it's very important to notice that we really need to work hard on changing the mindset of people, getting the same people to understand it's not a game of numbers. The question that a lot of you guys are asking each other is, how many cattle do you have? But you're not putting value to the cattle. If somebody says, I've got 1,000 head of cattle, a lot of people think the guy is very rich. Believe me, he is not a rich guy because he's not a commercial guy. If you've got 1,000 cattle that you are not even selling, you're just counting, you are not even a commercial farmer. A commercial farmer is that guy who turns over numbers, who knows TM, somebody must buy meat from TM Hyper. That's the commercial guy because he wants to feed the country, not to count numbers on the farm.
Interesting for you. Have you always been a farmer?
No. No, I'm an engineer. I did mechanical engineering.
So what made the crossover? Was it training? Was it just passion?
I don't like engineering. I like farming. I don't like it. You know, I like farming. So I never went to an agricultural school. I just do it out of passion. I visit farmers across the world just to be with farmers where there is conferences, where there is field days, where there is sales. You know, you meet other great farmers, you talk to them, you learn one or two things from them, and that's how I've learned to be a breeder.